Great. All right. Well, I say that as if you weren't all muted. I assume that if somebody has a technical problem, they will pop on and tell us. Uh, Thank you, everyone, for joining this webinar. We are really excited to talk about this today. This is a topic that is underneath almost everything everyone is doing in their careers, and yet does not get talked about. We do not anywhere near enough as a society and as a job market and as a culture talk about the concepts we're going to talk about here, but they're so strong, they're so helpful, and they can really dramatically change the trajectory of your career. Everything from what's going to happen 20 years from now to what's going to happen next month can be changed with what we're going to talk about here today. So Audrey and I are extremely excited to talk about it. Let's do a few introductions here. This is us. The one on the left in the red jacket is me. The one on the right is no. These are our founders, Nicole and Forum, and we are a holistic, full cycle coaching company. Audrey and I are very firmly in the career lane, right? That is our big tip. Audrey, actually, I don't think I should box you in. Did you do a little health, a little life too, right?
I do health and life, but career is where most of my clients are falling these days. So.
Okay. I do not do health, and please don't take health advice from me, but career stuff we're doing. So this is me, and I decided that I was going to put a few little descriptors in here, things that I have said about myself that I feel pretty confident are true, and give you a little taste of what it's like to work with me. Some of the people I'm seeing names on here have worked with me in the past. I hope that everyone that has worked with me in the past will be brutally honest and call me out if you don't feel any of these are true. But I am a solver of problems. A lot of my coaching revolves around breaking through obstacles, breaking through barriers. So many barriers we believe to be these impenetrable stone walls. The walls are made of smoke in almost every sense. So meaningful rule breaking, right? What are the rules that aren't there to serve you, are only there to hinder you, and we can break them purposefully and get further where you want. I also sometimes call myself an HR double agent because I spent a long part of my career in the world of human resources and recruiting, both internal and third-party recruiters. So I have all of that secret sauce from over there and kind of reveal the techniques. And this is Audrey Ryland. We were just talking about some of these, a wheelhouse architect. Something that Audrey and I have talked about that I love is that concept of being able to build your own wheelhouse, build your own area of expertise. And I love Audrey, so I will talk about her all day. But Audrey, talk about yourself for a minute.
Sure. Thanks, John. Yeah, so I would say I've had a very interesting career journey myself, and I've had many pivots and pauses along the way being a working mother. My daughter's, I can't believe is going off to college this next month. So aging myself here, but no. So I would say that from a career standpoint, I've had a lot of experience personally, but I've also enjoyed utilizing my career coaching certification and leveraging that with many people that are in transition or stuck in trying to figure out what's next, or having a hard time trying to sell themselves into a new role. So that's something I feel very strong and passionate about, as well as networking. I would say networking is one of my strongest suits. And then helping working parents, especially new young moms that are struggling with the work-life balance, and then bringing in kind of, the health coaching aspect of how that can impact your work, because it's all, as John said, holistic. Everything's interrelated.
Excellent. And this is Audrey and my first chance to get to do a webinar together, so I'm really excited about this. So we are going to talk today about how to take a series of jobs and reject that as a framework in place of a career. Far too often, we interchangeably use the terms job and career. They are nothing alike. Far too often, we think that our job that we currently have is our career, or maybe the ideal job that we want is our career. It's not. And we use those interchangeably, and as a result, we don't treat our career with the respect it deserves. It's, to kind of use that health coaching analogy, it's sort of like saying that my health is the same as my one workout routine, or my health is the same as this week's meal plan. They're not. There's clearly a relation there, but your health is something very different than any given piece of it or thing you're doing as a part of it. But we don't see that, and we don't create a framework for ourselves. And unfortunately, if you leave one organization to go to another, as everyone will do at some point in their career, there's no one over you handling that, right? There's no one over you that's consistently keeping track of all these things that we're going to show how to keep track of. So we're going to talk about how to make these growth choices, right? How to create things that are moving you towards where you want to be. We're going to talk about the career framework. This will be the meat of today's webinar. How to do all this, how to stop having a series of jobs and have this intentional career. And then we're going to talk about some of the pitfalls, right? Some of the things that stand in people's way. And then we're going to do a lot of Q&A. I want to leave a lot of time for discussion. And as I said, I want everyone here to participate in whatever way you're comfortable. I want to see stuff in the chat. I would love to even have some folks unmute. If you don't want to do that, I'm going to ask maybe challenging questions. That's totally fine. But I want everyone to follow along and at least answer those questions for themselves. Don't just let the questions we're going to talk about roll over. Have some paper, have a pen, open up a Word doc, something like that, so that I can actually give you the opportunity to take some of these things, put them into practice today. I want you to have actionable things that you leave with today. And then as we get those questions, responses from you, Audrey and I will panel coach a little bit on these topics. So you do get, as a reward for participating more heavily, a little free coaching. So I'm going to tell this story about my father, who's amazing. And when I was a kid, we used to take road trips all the time. My father loved a good road trip, that classic kind of Americana, load the kids in the car, station wagon with a bunch, stuff bundled on top with bungee cords, right? That kind of thing. And my father had rules for the road trip. And one of the rules was he would never drive on any road where you couldn't pull over. That if you could not safely and immediately pull over, get out of the car, stretch your legs, take a picture, pull off somewhere, visit something, he wouldn't drive on that road. So no freeways, no highways, no major interstates, nothing. So we would go all the way up and down the East Coast, or we would strike westward and go all the way in on backcountry roads and side streets and through little towns. Half the time we didn't make it to our destination. These were all great road trips because my father understood that the goal is not Niagara Falls. The goal is a great road trip. Niagara Falls is a tool that can get you there. It might even be great. But if we singularly focus on only that and we forget why we were doing it in the first place, we might miss way better opportunities to have a way better road trip. Sure, we could probably make better time if we just drilled right there, skipping everything along the way. Why? What's the point of doing it that way? The whole point is to maximize the true goal at every step of the way. So that's the framework I want you to keep in mind. Your career is a lot more like your car than any given destination. It's a lot more like your style of driving. Your career is a framework that's going to take you through plenty of stretches of road, rest stops, locations. Those are jobs. None of those are the trip. And you only go there when it's the right time to go there, and you leave when it's the right time to leave. So I want to talk about some growth choices. So here's your first question. And then Jill, if you wouldn't mind, if people put things in the chat, I can't see chat, Audrey can't see chat. So if you could let us know if anything does come into the chat, and then I'll throw it to Audrey to take the first one or two to answer. I want everyone to think, really be honest with yourself. Be as honest as you feel the format will allow, especially if you're not going to share it, be super honest. What's your biggest fear about not having a job? And when I say your biggest fear, right, I want to drill in deep. So for instance, a lot of people might say not having income, right? Except lots of people don't have income. They're just fine because maybe they're retired or they're independently wealthy. Go deeper. What would not having income do? Would it make you not pay the bills? Okay, but lots of people don't pay bills. What would not paying bills do for you? Would it go down until you get to the point of saying, it's making, what is really that manifesting as, right? Is it manifesting as you picturing yourself, shivering on the street? Is it picturing you ostracized by friends and family? What is the real visual manifestation? This should be uncomfortable. It should be painful to answer a little bit. If it's so painful you don't want to share it, that's fine. But I want you to answer for yourself. Take a minute. Let's see some pop up. And then, Jill, if you see one or two that either, if you see any trends, call them out. Like if you see something that's a lot, let us know. Or if you see anything that maybe is particularly unusual, interesting, just call a few of them out. And
yeah, for sure. And also, Audrey, if you're able to see the chat box, you can always.
Yeah, I am, and one of the trends. Yeah, one of the trends I'm seeing is insecurity and feeling a loss of identity. I've been there myself, struggled through it early in my career, feeling, the worry of others viewing you not having a job, or I can't believe she left the big job and she's, those are real fears. And I think through diving deeper into, why you're feeling that way and coaching through that can really help move beyond that. John, I don't know if, obviously you've probably come across that with many of your career clients.
Not just career clients, every human on earth, right?
Yes.
that you've ever interacted with. And the reason that I want everyone to answer this question is to have an answer. Tackling these individually is a great coaching concept. It's what we do with our clients all the time. But right now, where you are right now, whatever's on that piece of paper, that very negative thing, that very negative concept and image, that is what is driving your career right now. Right now, that is your motivator. That is the thing driving a ton of your choices. It's driving, it's in many cases, it's driving you to get out of bed in the morning. We are afraid. And that fear becomes pervasive. Now, fear is funny because fear doesn't give you statistics or error bars, right? If you fear something, you are generally very bad at assessing its actual likelihood. I have kids, I have young kids, and I can tell my 4-year-old all day that the statistical likelihood of our house spontaneously burning down in the middle of the night is very low. But it's a fear. And if it's a fear, it's going to be there. Generally speaking, what has to happen in order for that fear to diminish is we have to replace it with something. But for most people, that fear is what drives all choices, which means if you are unemployed, or if you think you are about to be unemployed, or if you are somewhere that is very bad for you, very toxic environment, very negative, all of your reactions to those situations are driven by this fear. So you're in a toxic, terrible work environment, but you don't want to leave it because you have this fear. Because you're in that, subconscious brain, your subconscious brain says, yes, this place is terrible, it's painful, whatever, but it's not the thing you fear most. The thing you fear most is that. And if you leave this job, that is what will happen, says your terrible subconscious brain. And if you don't have a job right now, you are scrambling, and you're scrambling because you have to take absolutely anything, and you have to just whatever reactionary thing comes in front of you, because if you don't, this is what will happen. This fear, that's driving you. We want to move away from this. We want to move away from fear as a driver. So let's talk a little bit about what you can do instead, and what this framework we're going to talk about will help you do. We let that fear kind of take us over, because when we are idealistic about jobs, when we seek that sort of perfect, I have to figure it all out, I have to get this exact perfect thing, it never lives up to that. And that fear always says, see, I told you so. See, told you so. Didn't work out. Oh, you went to this, oh, you thought it was going to be perfect. And then 3 years later, it wasn't. Told you so, told you so. And the fear gets its hooks in a little deeper, a little deeper. There was probably a lot of gold in that 3-year role if we had the way to see it. Everything is progress towards the next thing. It has to serve your life right now. It has to get rid of that fear, right? So whatever your fear was, it has to kind of push that aside. It has to be something that will do that. So if your fear was income related, it's got to give you enough income to push that off. But we also have to look at it as an endless series of paid internships, right? Fun things to do to the next thing. So I want to ask you this, Audrey, and you can answer this either personally or for one of your clients, but what kind of things do you think of when you look back at roles you had in the past or roles clients had in the past, where you look at them fondly, right? And you're like, I had a great time at that role, or all of my memories of it, or most of my memories of it were good. And then someone asks, well, then why aren't you there anymore? What do you tend to hear, or what do you tend to think as an example? Would you say, well, why, if it was good, why aren't you there anymore?
Well, I could think back at halfway through my career when I chose to leave JP Morgan. I had a great group of people I worked with, loved my team, had a great time. And I left for family reasons. Started a family, the travel was too much. And yet I struggled with my identity because I thought, oh, everyone's going to look at me differently now because I know I tied so much to that role. But as I look back and going through coaching myself, I help my clients now kind of look through the lens of your identity is not your job, and really let's uncover the goals of your life and what serves you and what's going to fit to help you be the happy, la vida, right? Happy life. So, right. And oftentimes the clients I work with just want to zone in on finding that next job. And so trying to help them take a couple steps backwards to say, let's really start talking about what's your priorities, what serves you today, because what that job you had 5 years ago, it may have served you, but now you're here. And to be open and trying to help them take off that insecurity that people are going to view you a certain way, or and what's quite funny is oftentimes I've had people say, nobody cares what you do for work. Nobody cares if you work or not. You do. So it's like helping my clients get out of their head that everyone's judging them.
That's so true. And compare that to the way you talk about those previous roles. And it's for everybody. We justify, right? And we say, we have to have reasons why we left, right? We have to have either excuses or reasons or something. But now I compare that, and I talked about this with a client recently. Asked a very similar question that actually gave me a very similar answer to yours. And then I said, all right, for your degree, she'd gone to college about 10-ish years ago. And I said, did you have a good time at college? She said, yeah, I loved it. Loved everything about my studies, loved everything about the major, had great professor, all that. I said, well, if you loved it so much, why did you leave? Same question, right? But to college instead of the job. And she said, what do you mean? I graduated. Like, what do you mean? Why did I leave? It was done. That's the way we should think about all of these steps. They are a thing to do until it's done. There will come a point where not that there's nothing left to learn, right? Because sure, if you want to stay, you probably stay in college forever if you want to keep paying and keep taking classes. But there comes a point where you've reached kind of the cliff of diminishing marginal returns, and it's time to do something else. And that's all. And you don't need anything deeper than that. You need the understanding that that is okay, and it is in fact good. Because here's the harsh reality of the world. Changes are going to happen to you either way. There is nothing you can do to build a wall against change. Nothing. Even if you somehow found the most secure job in the world and somehow found a job that had an ironclad contract, you could never be fired, anything, there's still things that you don't know that necessarily the company won't go bankrupt or that industry changes will happen, but you also don't know that you will never change. Is there anybody on this webinar, this call, that is done changing in any way in their life and will never have a major life event and will never enjoy a new hobby or lose an old one or want to do something different? You may change. So you can't insulate against change. All you can do is choose, do I want to be reactive, always reacting to the changes forced upon me? Or do I want to create the changes? Do I want to create changes that serve me and get ahead of that, because those are your only choices. If you think you have a choice where I can insulate against change entirely, what you end up doing is just having no agency. And I think for a lot of people, and so I'm not going to call any one person out, but I'm going to make a statement that's probably going to apply to 80% or more of people on this call, is every choice you've ever made in your career was a binary, do I stay or do I go? And if I've left, then a binary, like which of these two things in front of me do I grab? Only of the options that appeared when I needed them. That's it, these reactionary choices, right? Oh, I need a job. What can I do? All right, here's these two things. Well, I got two choices, grab one, go. Let's get away from that. A growth choice framework to help you visualize this, to help you see how progress can be meaningful, is to think of two buckets of water. So you got two buckets, and between them, there is one bucket's worth of water. So maybe right now, there's some mix between the two. And we can label one bucket good stuff and one bucket bad stuff. And the good stuff bucket is everything you want to do, everything you like doing. I don't even mean big purposeful stuff, but just day to day. What do you like doing? I like doing webinars with Audrey, right? Like, this is fun, good stuff. And then the other bucket is bad stuff you don't like to do, whatever aspects of your job or day are just unpleasant. Well, you're never going to get to a point where the good stuff bucket is 100% full and there's not a drop of water in the bad stuff bucket. Sorry, everyone has to attend a meeting they don't want to every once in a while. Everyone's got to fill out a report now and again. It's a thing. But you can get real high, and more importantly, you can get there incrementally. Now imagine right now you've got a bad stuff bucket that's 90% full, and maybe there's a little bit of water in the good stuff bucket. And there's an opportunity in front of you, you find something that would let you take 2 cups of water out of the bad stuff bucket, pour it in the good stuff bucket. A shocking number of people would reject that because it does not pour all of the bad bucket into the good bucket, because it doesn't do the whole thing all at once. They say, oh, well, that job would be really bad because it'd be 80% bad stuff. Yeah, but your current role is 90% bad stuff. We will make incremental choices to get there. In the same way that my father said, we're going to make incremental choices to add fun to the road trip. We're not just trying to all at once maximize our fun at Niagara Falls, which we've never even been to, and then drill our way back. So you should, a little exercise here for you, this is not one you necessarily have to share, but something to think about as we go, is think about what's in your good and bad buckets. Right? What is in a good bucket for you, or things you like to do again day to day. I love meetings, I hate emails. I love emails, I hate meetings, whatever it is. What are the skill sets you like to practice? Who do you like to help? And what's in the bad bucket, things you don't like to do? Itemize these things. Because if you don't write them down for yourself ahead of time, then every time you see an opportunity, you're going to react to that opportunity instead of seeking it out. What do you think, Audrey, is a common sort of reaction or confusion that, because I know you've seen this, I've seen this too, when a client comes to you and says, I found this job opportunity, I don't know if it's good. What do you think? And they come to you like, what do you think of this job for me, right? Where mentally are those clients at when they're coming to you? What's the real driver of someone bringing a job ad to you and saying, what do you think of this? What's there?
Well, I guess it would depend on how long I've been helping coach the client and knowing where they are in the process. But I think it's challenging my clients to really kind of take a step back and do an exercise of list all the different jobs you've had, say column A on a spreadsheet, right next to it, list the reasons why you left the job, or what wasn't right with the job, or what didn't you have in the job, and have those things. And then usually what I'll find is there's some trends, and they're repeating the same, and then they're finding themselves in a new job, but they haven't done the homework to really zone in on what is it that doesn't work for them, or what was.
And they have those things.
Right. Or, over and over, maybe there's a trend of feeling micromanaged, hated being micromanaged. And then it turns into a coaching opportunity of like, let's talk about those times so that whatever your next job is, let's work through ways that you can manage yourself and your manager or those around you so that doesn't happen, or that you find a role that being micromanaged, this is just one example,
right,
would not be part of that role. So I think it's just really looking back and doing the homework of like, what did, and then on the flip side, what are some of those accomplishments that you've had in different jobs and roles? What was it that what was it? How did you do it? Why did it make you feel accomplished? And once again, that's another exercise where you could start seeing some trends of their strengths, what they're good at, what gives them energy versus what drains the energy.
So good. And what I love about that, and why everyone on this webinar should do that exercise, or should have that 2-column sheet, is when I ask clients or anyone I'm working with to tell me the things that are most important in a given job, and most important things for their next role, salary and title are almost never number one, right? Number one, they're on the list, of course, but number one is always something relating to how they're treated, or a work environment, or a cultural aspect. And yet people will say that's my number one priority, and then leave it anyone else's chance, or they'll leave entirely the chance, right? They'll say the most important thing to me, no matter what, is that I am treated with respect. And then they'll go through the entire candidate process, even be offered the job, and accept it with no idea of whether that's going to happen, no research into it, no questions around it, because they didn't itemize it. They didn't ahead of time write it down for themselves. Because in the moment, you're going to be blinded by fear. Remember that fear motivator. In the moment, when that offer is on the table, or you think it's going to be on the table, and some good part of you wants to ask about, will I be micromanaged? Will I be treated with respect? That fear thing says, don't do that. Don't do that. You might wreck it. You need a job. You're afraid of this thing. So we don't. So you've got to do it ahead of time so that you're committed to it when the fear voice isn't very loud. All right, so let's drill in on this career framework. How do we avoid this? We talked about some things that happen, but how do you really do it? What are the things that you need to do? This is where we're going to get into this you incorporated idea. You are your own boss. I don't care what your work style is. I don't care if you are officially a W-2 employee. You are your own boss. You might be someone else's employee, but you are your boss. No one else will ever care as much about your career development as you. No one is coming in on a white horse to save you. You must be the person that drives these things. So we're going to talk about the 3 departments that you have to set up in You Incorporated. And all of them are going to be staffed by you, and you're going to put on different hats for them. But they have to exist because they're so important, and no one does them for you. So before we jump into them, I want you to answer this question. It does not have to be career. I'm talking about what is the most proactive decision you ever made? What is something you've done that not a single outside force made you do? There was nothing required. It was just from your heart of hearts, you just decided to do something. Ideally big, but whatever was big to you, what was that decision? I want you to reflect on it, think about it. This might be challenging for a lot of people. For many people, this is hard to pull up. Fear often drives us to make mostly reactive decisions. So what is a proactive decision? What is something you've done? How did it impact your life? Again, please share in the chat if it's there, but write it down whether you share in the chat or not. Something that you did. If you have to go small scale in order to find something, go small scale. Proactive decision might be a shirt you decided to buy, and it's not because your old shirt ripped, right? It's not because that just, and then Jill, as always, if you see, I'm gonna pop in. And I noticed, so one thing I can see a little bit of is, I can't see what's in the chat, but I can see the little number tick when things pop in. And I will kind of call out that the question of what is a big fear is very easy to answer. A lot of people put down a lot of things very quickly. The question of what is the most proactive decision you ever made is harder, which shows that for many, many people, we let fear and the reactive nature that it gives us be our decision maker.
All right, so we have.
What do you see in there?
Yeah, so we have moved to another state. run for political office, go learn a new skill.
I know who that one was, the run for political office.
Stepping away from my job in a surgical unit after working there for 18 years. Wow. Studying and working abroad, as well as moving from my home state, go abroad and study, moving a career after college and traveling to Laos for a month before moving back to the States. Wow.
Awesome.
Impressive.
Awesome. Now, you want to capture in these that you want to capture the essence of this. So for Audrey, my question is hearing some of these, because these are great, by the way. When a client is telling you this, right? A client is saying, this is a proactive decision I made. And by the way, a proactive decision does not have to have turned out well. I have made plenty of proactive decisions that turned out disastrously. That's okay. You're gonna have disasters in your life either way. At least I got to pick mine. So if a client is telling you, Audrey, about these proactive decisions, usually in a place of maybe some good nostalgia, maybe there's some good confidence building from it, right? What would you tell a client to capture, to work on, to extract from that is helpful, right? So what would you tell them to focus on? How would you tell them to pull that out? Just what are your thoughts on how you use that as a launching point for some other inspiring work?
Yeah, I mean, I would have them explain what motivated them to do that decision. You know, what was driving them to make such a big change. There had to be a reason for it, like moving and studying abroad. There must be a desire for travel, adventure. Like that was not coming from a place of fear, correct? You know, usually, or making a shift. I see Sonia in the chat went from engineering to training and leadership. Well, let's figure out like what made you pivot. Like what was it that drove you to go that direction?
That sounds like a bucket. That sounds like a bucket question, right? Maybe like, yeah, engineering wasn't bad bucket. We're gonna pour some water into the good bucket. I like that.
And I would say, kind of reframing this question, John, about the proactive decisions. Often I have a lot of clients that feel like they didn't realize that they were making very reactive decisions with taking certain jobs. And then they feel like they have to explain or be defensive. Or if it's a gap in their resume, or like I have a lot of clients that took some time off to stay at home to be with their kids, or they maybe were laid off and out of work for a while, or they chose to, they needed to stay home to take care of somebody, be a caregiver. And there's a lot of that insecurity of how do I explain that my LinkedIn and my resume has these gaps or this or that. And I really feel that it's trying to empower those clients to be able to reframe the way that they tell their story. Because like you said, it's a journey, like the road trip, and there's going to be a lot of stops along the way. But it's giving them the narrative that all these changes, even if they weren't proactive on their stand, maybe they were reactive, they got laid off, but being able to explain it in a way where they're confident, not defensive, because that comes through definitely in the interview process, which I'm sure, John, you have a lot of experience with the interviewing process.
I cheat. I was on the other side of the desk for a while. But I think you're so right that we can turn reactive decisions into proactive ones, right? We can take a circumstance that happened outside of our control and choose how we engage. And it's a great segue to what we're going to talk about here, because this is how you do that, right? How do you set yourself up to do that now? How do you set yourself up to do that before the event happens, so that when events happen that normally you have to react to out of fear, you are instead well positioned to be proactive? I'm going to give you, as I said, the three departments here, right? So you Incorporated needs an R&D department, right? You need research and development. It's a common thing I hear from a lot of my clients. They worked somewhere for 10 years, 15 years. And they tell me, I worked somewhere, it was, fine, good, bad, whatever, but I worked there for 10 years, for 15 years. And while I was there, I did my job. Put my head down, I did my job. I was reliable. I showed up for work. I did good work, but my head was in the sand. I was in this box the whole time. 15 years passed. I never talked to anybody that didn't work for my company. I never attended any like outside events, none of this. And now something has changed. Something, again, an event that was not under their control, maybe forced them out. Something happened. And now they say, I don't know the state of the world. I don't know what the industry looks like. I don't know what, who is who. All of my previous contacts from 15 years ago have retired, but didn't even know, where like all these things I'm totally lost again. You need to have a cadence for always staying at least a little bit in that R&D world. You need to always have maybe Google, everything from Google alerts to LinkedIn hashtags you follow related to your industry, your interests, things like that. So there's always at least some information coming in. You have to have these prior things we talked about, labeling the buckets, putting down the list that Audrey said of why you left every job and what to look for, right? Those questions set up for yourself so that every new thing you do find that piques your interest a little bit, you have set questions to ask. So instead of reacting each time with no overall framework, say, ooh, this kind of looks interesting. Hey, let me compare it against this list of questions. Oh, you know what? Maybe I'm seeing some of these red flags that, when I was in my coaching sessions with Audrey, she helped me identify, and that's here. How do I avoid those? But you need to always be doing this. No one's going to do it for you. You don't have anybody in your life that's going to give you a monthly report of, the state of available job openings for your industry and who's there and who you should informational interview with. You have to do it. You have to be your own boss here. So you need your R&D department working. And it doesn't have to be 10 hours a week. Some of the easiest ways to do this are automate some of it, right? Again, things like following LinkedIn hashtags, things like setting up Google alerts for specific terms related to your industry, and then if they appear in the news, they'll get sent to you. Just being on sites like LinkedIn, or if you're in tech and something like Stack Overflow, but whatever it is, you have to have this there, and so many people ignore it. To be honest with yourself, have you done this, right? In your past roles, have you always been on top of this, or have you had roles where you had your head down?
John, can I add to that on the research?
Please.
So I've recently worked with a client who, going through our brainstorming exercises and what are the modules within our career coaching, uncovered that event planning is something that she just loves to do, but it has nothing to do with her current job. But she identified that. And so I challenged her to research it, as far as she took a couple of courses, like free online courses. We have a whole list of different Coursera, and there's other options. And after going through this one course, she realized, wow, this is something I really feel passionate about. Help me develop, like, how can I transition into an event planning role, even though she's in communications marketing, but she also does, part of that is project management, which event planning is definitely a project management. So I think during the research development phase, there's so much out there today, that all these free resources, that if there's something that piques your interest, and maybe it's something outside of what your current job is, explore it. I mean, take a free online course, see if it's something that resonates, that you want to pursue. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
So good. I mean, the development is as important, right? This part of this process is learn new stuff. So many people spend 15 years in a role and then realize, other than having traded time for money during that time, I am no further ahead. I have this kind of arbitrary extra years of experience, but my skill set hasn't really changed. I haven't learned anything new. If anything, 15 years of not learning new skills, you're further back, right? Because new stuff has come out, you're behind the curve. So absolutely, you've got to keep yourself sharp. Now, related to that, you also need a marketing department, because just as you don't know anything about the world while you're burrowed in your hole, you don't know anything about the world, they also don't know anything about you. You need to be visible. Things like the job hunt, networking, all of those things should not be exclusively you sending feelers out. You should be findable. Whatever your niche is, whatever your thing is, whatever problem you can solve, somebody's looking for you. Right now, at this second of this day, while you are on this webinar, somebody's looking for you. They don't know that they're looking for you specifically, but they are looking for the solution to the problem you solve. How do they find you? Are you findable? Right? Whatever thing you think you are great at, whatever thing is your zone of genius. You say, I am super good at this. If I right now on the other side said, typed into Google, best person at this, or, expert on this, are you going to show up? Can I find you on LinkedIn? Have you produced work in this way? This way you need a marketing department. So what that translates into in terms of actual action steps day to day are things like just showing your work, right? Hey, we did a big company event. I was the one planning. So going from project management to event planning, right? Maybe an easy first step is just to kind of raise her hand to plan a particular company event. Oh, we're doing this company get together or this thing. You know what? Let me take the lead on that. Let me coordinate. Take a few pictures of it. It was a great event. Everyone had a good time. Take like a nice team photo. You post it. It doesn't have to be overly super self-promoting brandy, but at least it's out there. It just says, I had a really great time with the team. Planning this event was great. That's it. That way, at least people can see. You have to be out there. You have to live out loud. You have to be visible. Can't be invisible for 15 years. And then clients come to me and they say, oh, networking is so hard. I really wish I'd done this. My LinkedIn I haven't logged into in 15 years, right? I don't even know if it was around 15 years ago, but it's so hard. I really wish I had done it the whole past 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Yes. Or they even say, my current job is really toxic. It's really bad. It's really negative. I want to start networking to get out of it. But won't it be suspicious if I suddenly am active on LinkedIn after having never been before? Yeah, it will. So don't let that happen, right? Be active on LinkedIn all the time. So you need a marketing department. And then the last one, you need a human resources department. You need HR. Here is what the HR department for you Incorporated does. You set goals for your life, the road trip rules, right? You have said, here is the life I want to live, the way that career serves it. This is a deep part of coaching, by the way. Audrey helps clients with this. I help clients with this. Getting to these deeper answers, setting those goals. It's really easy if you are comfortable to ignore them. If you have a job that is paying your bills, feel secure, and no one is treating you badly, it's real easy to fall into a rut and ride that until it's not, until something changes in you or the job and it's not anymore. Instead, you need to set up regular intervals with yourself. They can be monthly, quarterly, annually, whatever works for you, where you say, I'm going to sit down and do a performance evaluation for myself, not on my job skills, not on how well I'm doing at the job, but these questions. And I'm going to give example questions, but obviously you and your coach would work out better examples for you, but these are some generic ones that have come up a lot. In the last year, have I learned any skills I didn't know the year before? Have I met any new people I didn't know before? Have I gotten to do any new things that I couldn't do before? Or did this year look a lot like last year? Maybe a question is, this year, if what I say is that I really value my family and the time spent with my family, and I'm doing this as a provider for my family. Okay, in the last year, which happened more? You didn't do something with your family because you had work, or you didn't do something with work and you were able to take the day off wherever because you had something with your family. In other words, when your family and your work came into conflict, who won more often? These are the kinds of questions that we run from. These are the kind of questions that the fear voice drowns out. Because if you don't make yourself do this by setting these dates, and I mean putting it in your calendar and setting up reminders, if you don't do that, then when these thoughts just sort of start to come up, that fear voice says, hey, don't think like that because you don't want to have this happen, whatever the fear thing was, right? You don't want to have that. So listen, just calm down. All right, you're doing okay. Don't get ambitious. And if you don't do this for yourself, no one else will. No one else cares enough. Your very close friends, your family, they may care emotionally enough, but they don't have the necessary skill sets, and no one in your work environment is going to. This has got to be you. So these are the 3 departments you have to have, and these happen 24/7. I just don't have to do them all the time, but they always exist, whether you have a great job or not. They are evergreen. That means you may have this performance evaluation, and you may look at your answers and be confronted with the idea that you say, nothing about my current job is bad. They treat me nice, the pay is good, benefits are fine, right? Like there's nothing bad. but it's no longer serving the bigger goals. It's time to graduate. It's not bad. It's not an insult to them. It's just time to go. And you'll be proactive, because if that's the case, if you have a comfortable job that no one's firing you from, how much easier is your job search then? Especially since you've been doing your R&D this whole time and you've been marketing this whole time, those departments have been running. How easy is it to make that proactive choice?
And
You're
John,
not being driven by fear. Go ahead.
and we've all heard this before. It's the what are you running to instead of what are you running from?
Outstanding. Outstanding. Moving forward. Fear's behind you. Moving forward. So those are pillars. Now, these were top level concepts. You have to do a lot of development work to make these work for yourself. There's obviously all sorts of tactical considerations for how do I do each of these things? Do I have a portfolio website or a LinkedIn? Google alerts versus hashtags? What are the questions to ask? These are things that you will have to work out with yourself, your spouse, your family, your coach. This is a real bulk of my interaction with clients, Audrey's interaction with clients. So if you're seeing this here, you're thinking, this is really good and I want to do this, but I still feel a little lost on how exactly to execute. We're going to share our emails at the end of this, and you can write to us. So potholes and speed bumps, because people do, they work on these things as much as possible. I'm going to use this to kind of segue into our Q&A here too, so that we have some time for it. What is your biggest professional weak spot in terms of what outside perception is? How do you justify it during interviews, applications, et cetera? And a common example from some clients I work with is they don't have a degree, for example, right? They don't have a degree, and they say, well, that's my big, the big problem. They don't have a degree, and so, I'm always on interviews. I have to kind of caveat and present it this way, and when I apply, I have to do this and this, and so that's just an example. So for yourself, again, write it down. Share if you want to share, and this may be one that's very sensitive to share because you're talking about this, but if you do share it, you get some good actual advice here. And then how do you justify? While you're just for time consideration, while you're brainstorming that, I just want to throw a few of the kind of common things people make mistakes on so that you have them, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A so that you get a chance to ask us maybe some things that are more actionable. So some common things don't do. Hey, stop justifying, right? It's kind of a trick question that I just gave you. Don't justify it. And Audrey alluded to this earlier. You don't have to justify anything, nothing at all. All you have to do is talk about their problem, your solution. That's the bridge, right? That's the bridge with anybody. None of the rest of that matters. And if you start from the position of justifying it, again, that's a fear-based decision. You are fearing that they're going to spot that little gap or whatever it is, and they're going to drill down into it, and they're going to make you feel terrible, and you're going to lose out on the opportunity. It's fear. And so what do you do as a reaction to that fear? You focus all of your attention and all of your communication on the worst thing, instead of just throwing it out the window and saying, all right, they have a problem, I'm going to solve it. I love, again, the project management to event management. They have a problem. Their events are a mess. They have RSVPs going to 3 different email inboxes, and they couldn't get a venue on time, and it's a mess, right? That's a problem. You have a solution. I'm a brilliant project manager, and I can come in and I can rock this. Well, I don't care about anything else, right? That's the communication. So stop justifying. Stop trying to be complete. Stop trying to make the next thing you do the thing that's going to carry you forever. It's not. It's certainly not. It's got to be progressively adding, right? It's got to be better. It's got to be serving that time. And stop trying to be complete from the past too. People are trying to so hard to make everything in their career from this point forward include everything they've ever done in the past ever, right? And it's like saying, taking 10 different jigsaw puzzles and dumping them all into one big bucket, and then saying, I will only accept a picture that includes all of those pieces. But the pieces are very different. They don't fit in the same puzzle. Instead, figure out what the other person wants. Oh, they want a horse? Great. I'll find the pieces that make a horse, and I'll assemble that piece. Who cares what the rest of the pieces are, as long as you're getting what you want in the future? Stop reacting. Let's open it up. I want to hear what everyone is thinking. I know this is very new, very radical for a lot of people. It's things we want to believe we're doing, but are so hard to do. without this high degree of proactive intentionality. But I would love for Jill to grab anything that people have said in the chat that may be relevant, or questions they're having now. And while you're doing that, would you mind, since I'm on the full screen mode, so I can't, would you mind, it's a good time to throw Audrey and my emails into the chat, just so everyone knows if we do run out of time here and we don't get all these questions, which I'm sure we will not get all of them, and you want more, we're here. The email inbox is open.
Absolutely. Thanks, Johnny. All right, so the emails are down there, excuse me, but we'll also include all of the contact information, like I said, in the recap email. So there's that. All right, so to answer the last, so some of the, so we didn't have, I'm gonna take another look at the questions. I didn't see any come along, but lots of people answering your questions. So weak spot, you don't have enough of the desired experience, justify transferable skills from previous job titles. From Leon, I bump into team size issues. Targets who won't even talk to candidates. You haven't managed teams of at least 100 people.
There are, I love both of these. Let me go in order there. Was that not before the team size? Repeat that.
So I think it was from the last one where you were talking about weak spots. So it was weak spot, you don't have enough of the desired experience. And then justify transferable skill from previous jobs.
Remember how I said in the beginning I was an HR double agent? All right. So I'm going to share a secret. For a big part of my career, my job was to write job ads, right? To write those things that you're reading and are so terrible. So I apologize. Whenever 100% of the time, 100% of the time, those requirements, especially the years of experience requirement, are made up. There is zero scientific or metric driven data collection that informs that choice. None. They have never. I did a seminar with a panel, or to a group of HR hiring managers, recruiters, and I was pulling job ads from their websites onto like a projector, and then asking questions, drilling down. And I pulled up one that had 5+ years experience or something, and I pulled that hiring manager that wrote that job onto the stage in front of everybody. Said, "Take this microphone, and God is your witness. Tell me what a candidate learned in year 5 that they could not have learned in year 4 under any circumstances." It's all made up. It's designed to filter you out. It's designed to filter out people who are afraid. Don't do it. Don't let them. Walls are made of smoke. Don't let them tell you that. Don't let them tell you not to apply. Can you solve the problem? Good. Tell them you can solve the problem. Show them how. Give them a little taste. Forget. They won't talk to me because I haven't managed a team of 100 people. Could you manage a team of 100 people? If you could, tell me how. Don't justify. Don't necessarily get into transferable skills. Show it. If the role is a manager of 100 people or more, say, "I'm so excited about this. On day 1, here's what I will do." Lay it out. Wow, now I'm intrigued. Now we're talking about your actions. We're not talking about whatever the worst thing was, whatever the gap was. You're not even bringing attention to it because you're solutions oriented, proactive, going forward. Don't react. Don't react out of fear. Don't talk about the things you don't have. Pick a thing you want to do and go do it. What else is in there, Jill?
Love that. That's like that. We need a blog post that says just that. everything you just said. I mean, yeah, right. I mean, even in my years of applying for jobs, those years of experience chased me away from, God, I feel like at this point, hundreds of job descriptions. I think that's so
Let me
important.
make this short. Audrey, I'm going to ask you directly, right? And again, hand to God, I want you to tell me this honestly. You've had a storied career, right? You and I were talking about this, and we've had like these weird winding paths, both of us, right? We've done multiple things. I want you to, in your head, I want you to go through every job you've ever had. Hand to God, did you meet every single qualification list on the job ad every single time?
No.
No. Is there anyone who has, right? Was there ever a time when there was something, where you didn't know something, right, and got it in? These things are cheat sheets. You're not a static person, right? You're not a snapshot. If something's a skill set, maybe like a technical skill on job ads. Oh, you have to know how to use this electronic skill, right? This tool. And I've had clients say, I don't know how to use that tool, so I won't apply. But they told you which tool it is. Just go learn it. It's not, you're not a static person, right? You have the capacity to change. So if the 100 team is, maybe you start to say, I'm going to use the 100-person team example. Maybe you say, okay, they won't talk to me until because I haven't managed a 100-person team. And I just gave you that. If I said, if you can manage a 100-person team, whether you've done it or not, just explain how. And then maybe upon self-reflection, you actually say, I don't know how. I haven't done it. And legitimately, I don't know exactly how I would do it. Okay. Go volunteer somewhere where you can manage 100 people for a day, right? Go volunteer at one of those trash pickup days on a beach, or organize one yourself and just say, hey, I'm doing this now, organize trash pickup day, national park, wherever, right? And just get friends, family, whoever to come in until it's 100 people. And then manage them and manage that day and write down your lessons and talk about them. And then remember, marketing department, take a picture of it, put it on LinkedIn. This was great. Here's you in a reflective vest, picking up trash, 100-person team behind you in a big group photo, done. You have the ability to change these things. You have the ability to move forward. You don't have to build your next thing only out of the big bucket of jigsaw puzzle pieces of the past. You can do more things. What else in there? I know we're coming up on time, I think, but what else in there?
Yeah. So that was mostly it. So to follow up to the first one about the weak spot. So just really quick, because I think this is also important to note. So Kimberly, my example is actually from the most recent rejection after a final round of interview. They picked another candidate because they have more program management experience. So maybe just touch on the difference when comparing maybe two candidates versus what you are actually applying to and what you think you're capable of.
Ooh, Audrey, because we've talked about some similar things here. What do you think when someone is facing that, right? What are they thinking? What are they getting their head about?
Well, in my own experience and knowing hiring managers as well, is oftentimes, that's an easy, sometimes that's what the recruiter or somebody will tell you versus, because usually it's something else as far as why that other candidate was chosen. But that's an easy fallback. Oh, you didn't have X amount of years experience, the other candidate did, or
true,
they had more program management experience. And it's just, I think, an easy way to, you tell me, you've had the experience, John, as a hiring manager.
Yeah. Oh, you're 100%. That's why I want to hear your perception of it on the candidate side, because yes, hiring managers and recruiters are cowards, and I'm sorry for them. Not all of them, obviously, that's a generalization, but yes. And here's why. You will feel like I was extremely qualified for that role. I would have knocked it out of the park. I met most of the qualifications and I would have been great at it. Why didn't I get picked? Why didn't I even get an interview? Why? It's not a test. This is the thing. It's not you versus the requirements. It's you versus every other candidate who you never get to meet, never get to see, and don't know what they do. At least one of those candidates is doing something like what we described here. They're doing some sort of extra miling. They're doing a better job with their marketing. They're doing whatever it might be. Maybe they're not even as skilled as you, but they're doing a better job of putting their hand up. They're doing a better job being visible. And so they win, even if you could have done the job perfectly well. But if 400 people apply to a single opening, the number 2 out of 400 doesn't get it, right? So you shouldn't let that demoralize you. You shouldn't let that say, oh, I wasn't qualified. I was out of my lane. I shouldn't do that again. No, that's a fear-based reaction. You're awesome. If you got interviewed at all, you're awesome. Even if you didn't, you're awesome. You know these things, but you may have to do something extra mile to really get what you want, right? You have to really proactively go after it. One of the most common ones, talking about reaction, is going to that interview ready to be asked questions. That's a reaction. Proactive is going into an interview with your agenda, with your presentation, with your set of questions for them, with everything that you want to do and present, right? Someone did that. Someone had that proactive mentality and they got it. And the hiring manager is never going to say, well, you're a great candidate. The other person just really blew us away. They were great. They did this, they did this, they did this. Because they're not going to show that person's hand of cards. It's not them. They're going to give something very generic, something you can't easily argue with. to be polite. So this is where it's really helpful to have an objective kind of third-party observer that is not your family, who don't have necessary skill set and are going to tell you great no matter what, or the hiring manager who has all these biases and reasons to have to protect their communication with you. This is a very common coaching question of giving that third-party observation. I feel like we may be very over time. Is that true, Jill? I can't. Everything's full screen, so I can't say.
John, you are just such a plethora of knowledge. It's hard to cut you off, but yes, we are over. But
nice
I love that actually. But hey, most everyone usually cuts off at like the hour mark, but most everyone is still staying here, so that's really good. But of course, we do want to be respectful of everyone's time, so we will cut it off right now. But thank you for staying the extra 5 minutes. We appreciate it. While if John and Audrey want to give final words, just a recap really quick. We'll be sending this recording out tomorrow, including additional resources, emails, ways that you can stay connected with us, learn more about coaching, learn more about this topic. So just wanted to throw that in there. And then any final words from our coaches today?
Go ahead, Audrey. They've all been wonderful. No, they've been wonderful.
Mindful of time, John. Mindful of time.
Thank you, Audrey, for joining me, and Jill.
Well, thank you, John, for leading. But anyone on the webinar, reach out to me or John. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to. We'd love to help answer any questions, whether it's about Amala Vita or coaching. Feel free to connect.
Please do.
Awesome.
And Audrey, you've been magnanimous. Thank you so much for co-hosting this with me. It was great. I love our conversations. I always love our personal one-on-one conversations. And so I was so glad to take that wisdom that comes out of the things I hear from you in our one-on-ones. Let's just do it in front of an audience and they'll get so much out of it. So
well, John,
thank you so much.
You're the webinar pro, and this was my very first webinar. So hopefully
you crushed it.
Everybody,
you crushed
it.
it.
For Audrey, first webinar with Amala Vita. We're so excited to have you here.
Well, first one with Amala Vita. Sorry, I need to preface
There you go. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all so much. We hope to see you all again sometime soon. Take care.
Bye, everybody.